All right, let's talk about the presentation on Thursday. So what you just saw from Ying and Tarami is that you're kind of taking a whole boatload of non-formatted information and you're trying to format it into a solid presentation. So essentially what I've done here is I'm presenting you with a bit of a roadmap for how you might begin to integrate our design media drawings into the requirements for your design class drawings. We also have the outline that I presented to you as a list of requirements, which I will be checking on Thursday, for all of your designs. So these items must make it into your presentation. When it comes down to seeing the deliverable in your presentation and what I'm grading, I just need to see it somewhere. What you'll need to do is essentially figure out where it's best placed, and I've started to do that for you. So obviously, when you have your group presentation, which is focused on the weather analysis, and maybe even so far as what your conclusion is about the weather analysis, section 1, your weather analysis diagrams in either catalog format or overlay format, will be in your presentation. So what that means is whether or not you're taking all of your data from something besides Grasshopper, or if you are using Grasshopper for your data, you'll have to have it formatted. So what I would like you to attempt is to try and get the colorization of your charts, and I don't know what other programs you're using, but if you can change the colors, please do. If you cannot, then obviously you can't get it done if you don't know Photoshop yet. But I will expect, if you're using Grasshopper, for all of your colorization to be matching. Now, that's just raw weather data. So in the actual presentation, what I've got under section 1 here that I drew up on the board is the group analysis, right? So all the slides that you just saw and all the slides that you're currently working on, that's this little packet right here called group analysis. That's all this stuff. And so I put a little bullet point underneath that says weather analysis in either catalog or overlay format. Okay, so you know that that needs to be in your deck of slides for your group presentation, or should be, but you can break the rules if you need to. Now the other one is kind of, it kind of goes this way or that way. That would be the radiation analysis. So showing all of the trials of your radiation analysis. Now, why am I pointing the number 2 to either section 1 or section 3? I'm doing that because some of us really explored those trials as an abstract, and it has nothing to do with your actual design. In which case, it could potentially belong with your analysis, your weather analysis, because you're either studying just massing or different shading strategies to just test whether or not they're effective. And that would be okay to include with your initial group analysis in some cases. Now, if you used your actual design project, which is kind of what you're seeing here, where it's a full building, it actually has a lot of the architectural character that you're exploring, then I would say that's more in line with section 3, which is essentially your personal presentation. Okay, so you've moved from you've moved away from column 2 in our matrix of analysis into column 3, where you've gone from a conclusion and just playing around with the conclusion. Now you're actually producing a solution. Okay. And so what I want to see for your radiation analysis is all of your trials, a minimum of 2. Okay, so I need to see 2 different radiation analysis trials for different strategies. Okay, so basically that means if you did one and it didn't work, and you did another one and it finally worked, I need to see that. If you did 4 or 5 of them, I want to see those as well. Back to the actual deliverable, what it says is for summer and winter solstice at noon. Okay, so I will need to see a drawing as a pair for both. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. All right. So then section 3 is the hard part, right? So that would be this, sorry, section 2 in the drawing. This is confusing. I really confused you here. Radiation analysis is section 2 for that, but it's section 3 here. It's purple. But anyway, the orange ones are your section 3 on, on the actual drawing here. So that would mean anything that is your solution, right? So your solution being, go back to this again, the sections that you're actually drawing in order to communicate what your solution is and how it works. The axonometric section that you're taking your diagrammatic language and you're overlaying it onto a rendered and vector overlaid axonometric section of your actual design building. Also, you're going to need your sun study, which is going to require your 30 minutes after sunrise, 2 hours after sunrise, your noon, your 2 hours before sunset, and 30 minutes before sunset. So that's 5 drawings that you're going to need to test your actual design, both in or at the winter solstice and at the summer solstice. So this must be included in your drawing set. And so let's talk about what it actually is. So what you see here is obviously your 2-dimensional sections. Why did I draw it this way? Well, that's because I want to see every single, since you're only providing an 8.5 by 11, I want to see every single section on its own sheet. It must be big and detailed. So, for instance, Ying's drawings here, those are pretty fantastic. In fact, they might be able to get away with putting 2 on this sheet. Okay, so they look pretty good and they're very clear. I'd say generally speaking, though, most of our buildings are going to require 1 per sheet. So that's your 2-dimensional sections. And most notably about those, just to kind of clarify a little bit, right? So that's per diagrammatic solution derived. What that means is I need to see a section for your solar, your passive solar shading. If you're using earth sheltering, I need to see a section for your earth sheltering and where that happens in your building. If you're using passive cooling, I need to see a section for passive cooling. How are you using it? How does it work? Every single one of those needs to be a separate section. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Okay, moving on then. So then the sun study, I think you kind of have some options here, but I threw one out that's probably going to work for most of us, may not work for all of us. Right here is kind of the discussion about it, right? So you need to have 2 times a set of sun angle screen caps, basically. And you need one for the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So what I suggest is to have, since there are 5 of them, my suggestion is have your morning shots on one sheet, have your noon shot on another sheet, and have your afternoon shots on a 3rd sheet. That's because the images are very, very small and you can't really see much in the drawings themselves when they're cataloged in one sheet. So, and I'm going to call you out on this one again, Ying, but this time it's for something that can be improved. These drawings right here, absolutely beautiful in how they're laid out, and if you want to just kind of look at it as a preview, that's great. In fact, if every single one of you wants to put this as a catalog before the other drawings, I would say that's awesome, please do it. However, I can't see anything in them. So they need to be blown up. They need to be bigger. If you have the ability, I would actually prefer that you do every single one of them on their own sheet or their own slide. If you don't have the ability, or if you're really crunching for, you don't want to print out an extra 4 to 8 sheets, then you can do the 2 morning ones on one sheet and the 2 morning ones on an afternoon, or 2 afternoon ones on another sheet. Okay, but I'd say the noon ones, these ones right here, need to be big, because the difference between noon at the summer solstice and noon at the winter solstice is pretty huge. Okay, so that's why they need to be really big. Let's see. Generally speaking, I think that captures it. Oh, this one right here is just a reminder that you need to have your axonometric rendered vector overlay of your actual building. Generally speaking, what questions do you have? So for those of you who are not in design, I need all of these drawings from you. Okay? But they don't need to be in two different formats. I need them as basically just one PowerPoint or one collapsed PDF with a bunch of pages. Okay? All right, since there are no general questions, today is a work day. I know that you're all freaking out, and that's why only half of you are here. But I have a video here for your classmates, so make sure you let them know that this video is on the YouTube channel, and that all of this is required on Thursday.